Folks, one of the things that we want you to do while you're in school is grow up, mature. And one aspect of maturity is what we call empathy. Anybody know what that means? That means you can put yourself in the place of somebody else. So here's the first thing I want all of you to know. What's happening in Ukraine is not a movie. This is not a video game. This is the real deal. This is war. One of our great generals, famous generals, was Douglas MacArthur. MacArthur said this: war is man's greatest sin because it is cruelty organized on a massive scale. Modern war, you got planes, you got missiles, bombs, artillery shells, machine guns, rifles, all that. Even if you try to only shoot at soldiers, there's civilians in there. What's a civilian? A civilian is an old person like me, a young person like you. It's dads, it's moms, it's babies, it's infants, it's dogs, it's cats, it's cows, it's whatever's out there gets blown away. So this is the real deal, and I hope we can feel some empathy for the Ukrainian people and what they're going through. Now, I guess one odd aspect of this would be this. Here is Russia fighting Ukraine. A few decades back, they were all part of the same country. There was a country called the Soviet Union. Soviet Union came about in 1917 as a communist uprising, revolution. They put together a 15-country monolith, big, powerful thing called the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics, the USSR for short. The biggest part of this was Russia, but you also had the Ukraine, you had the Baltic states, Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, 15 different pieces. At one time, Russia and the Ukraine were all part of the same nation, the Soviet Union. And folks, we were against the Soviet Union. The United States was against them from the beginning because they were communists. We viewed them as ruthless. It was a dictatorship run first by a guy named Lenin and then Stalin, one of the great mass murderers in history. We faced off against them kind of from the beginning, with one exception. During World War II, we allied with the Soviets. We fought on the same side. Why? Because Hitler was in Germany then, and he had this unbelievable war machine, and we had to team up together to stop him. Now, after World War II, something happened. To defeat Germany, the Soviet army had to go through Eastern Europe. It had to go through countries like Poland, Romania, Bulgaria, Yugoslavia, Czechoslovakia, to get to Germany to finally defeat Hitler. The leader of the Soviet Union promised us something. He told us, we, the Soviets, we're not going to take over those countries in Eastern Europe. Once we defeat Germany, we're going back home. Well, Stalin lied. When the war was over, the Soviets took over all those countries, and this was the beginning of something that we called the Cold War. Kind of an odd name, isn't it? Folks, we called it the Cold War because for decades, we are faced off against the Soviet Union. We are against them, they are against us, militarily, economically, financially, the space race, which we won. In every which way, we're faced off against each other. But it never went hot. We never actually fought each other. Now, along the way, you get some very important developments. Nuclear weapons. We developed the atomic bomb, used it to end World War II, dropping atomic bombs on two Japanese cities, Hiroshima and Nagasaki. This is in 1945. We were the only country that had the atomic bomb, and we thought it was going to be many decades before anybody else would have one. We were shocked in 1949 when the Soviets came out with the atomic bomb. All right, what is an atomic bomb? It is a bomb that can take out an entire city. When we dropped the bomb on Hiroshima, it killed 100,000 people. When we dropped the one on Nagasaki, it killed about 85,000 people, and then more people died after that due to radiation poisoning. Now, we both got atomic bombs. 1952, we developed an even more powerful bomb, the hydrogen bomb, 100 times more powerful than the atomic bomb. Hydrogen bomb can take out a city as big as New York City with 10 million people in it. 1953, to our astonishment, the Soviets developed a hydrogen bomb. As we move on into the 50s, it gets even a little more, certainly a lot more scary, with the development of what was called ICBMs, intercontinental ballistic missile. You put the hydrogen bomb on top of this rocket, you shoot the rocket into the fringes of outer space, it flies halfway across the world and lands on top of a city. Can you stop it? No. Can you shoot it down? No. How long does it take to fly? 30 minutes. 30 to 45 minutes. We developed intercontinental ballistic missiles. The Soviets developed intercontinental ballistic missiles. And now the world lives under the threat of nuclear war. Also, both sides developed what are called SLBMs, submarine launched ballistic missile. Submarine is underneath the water, you can't find it, pops to the surface, launches these same missiles with the nuclear warheads. This made the world a very, very dangerous place. Now, to hold the Soviets back, we entered into an agreement with a number of friendly nations and formed something called NATO. You're going to hear that a lot in the news the next few days. North Atlantic Treaty Organization, okay? It's us, the British, the French, the Germans. It's 20, so a lot of small countries are part of it. It's all of Western Europe plus Canada. And the agreement is this: if the Soviets attack any of us, we will all fight against the Soviets, okay? The Soviets by this time have developed their team. Their team is called the Warsaw Pact. It is Romania, Bulgaria, Poland, Czechoslovakia. Now folks, there's a difference between our team and their team though. Our team want to be with us because they're afraid of the Soviets and they like what we stand for. The Warsaw Pact countries don't have any choice. They have to do what the Soviets say. A couple times, countries didn't. 1956, the Soviets rolled their army into Hungary. 68, they do it in Czechoslovakia. So folks, this is the world that I was a part of for a long time and used to teach students about. You know, here we are over here, here's the Soviets over here, Warsaw Pact against NATO, nuclear weapons, we gotta worry about that. All of this comes to a screeching halt in 1989, 90, and 91. Because the Soviet Union comes unraveled. It falls apart. Falls completely apart. Most shocking thing that ever happened on the international stage during my lifetime. I mean, my gosh, you thought the Soviet Union, I mean, they were 30 feet tall and, you know, I mean, could jump over the moon, the strongest country on earth besides us. All of a sudden it's gone. Fell apart mostly because of economic issues. What happens is the countries in Eastern Europe get their independence. Poland, Czechoslovakia, Hungary, Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, these countries are no longer have to do what this country says, and the Soviet Union breaks up into 15 pieces. The biggest piece is Russia. Ukraine becomes a separate country. Now, one individual who was part of this Soviet war machine was a guy named Vladimir Putin. He was an officer in the KGB. KGB was like the Soviet spy agency, okay? He was a bigwig in that. Putin was horrified by this. He says to this day, the breakup of the Soviet Union is the worst thing that ever happened in the history of the world. Okay, so that is kind of some background on how this whole thing unfolded. Now, along the way, in 1990, we made an agreement with the Soviets just before they broke up into 15 pieces. And the agreement was this. We told them we are not going to expand NATO to the east. We're not going to have these countries that you used to control, we're not going to have them join our team. We're not going to do that. Well, we did it. We did it because we thought we had to do it, because we feared if we didn't do it, the Russians were going to take them over again. So folks, today, if you look at a map, Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, Poland, the Czech Republic, Romania, Bulgaria, they've all joined NATO. Putin viewed that as a double cross, okay? He views that as you double crossed us. Folks, you gotta understand something about the Russians. Anybody know what the word paranoid means? Ever heard of paranoia? That means you think somebody is out to get you. Gotta watch them, they're out to get us. Nobody, no nation, no group of people on earth are more paranoid than the Russians. Why? Okay, here's why. They have suffered 2 horrendous invasions. This is a big part of their history. You're taught certain things in school. I'm telling you what the Russian kids are taught. They're taught first about the invasion of Russia in 1812 by Napoleon Bonaparte in the French army. Napoleon is a military genius, arguably the second greatest general in the history of the world behind Alexander the Great. Napoleon leads this 600,000 man army into Russia, and they invade and they go all the way to the capital city of Moscow, capturing Moscow. The Russians try to fight them, but the French army is really too strong, so what the Russians end up doing is a scorched earth policy. As you retreat, you burn everything. You burn everything. You burn the crops, you destroy the food supply, you destroy everything, denying Napoleon the supplies he needs. Do the math, folks. 600,000 soldiers eat 1.8 million meals a day. You know, you eat 3 times a day, 3 times 600,000, 1.8 million meals a day. He's also got about 80,000 horses pulling wagons, pulling cannons, with the cavalry troopers also, involved. They got to eat too. All of a sudden, there's not enough food. Napoleon gets to Moscow, has to retreat out. In the end, the Russians win the thing. But the whole country is in ruins. They had to burn everything to survive. Hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands of Russians starved. It was a disaster beyond belief, even though they won the war. Even worse than that, World War II. Hitler invaded what was then the Soviet Union. Now, folks, to this day, historians differ in their estimate of how many Soviets, mostly Russians, died in World War II. The low-end estimate is 20 million. Most historians think it was 25 or 28 million. 25 or 28 million people. But some recent Russian historians have gone through the census records, and they think it may have been 40 million died.
Dr. Finley, you mind if I add in?
Sure, jump in there.
How do y'all remember how many people live in the state of Mississippi? It's right around about 4 million, right? That's 10 Mississippis in just one war. That's astronomical, man. That just blows my mind to think about. Go ahead. You can go ahead.
So folks, my point is this. We have now expanded NATO far, far to the east, close to where Russia is, and there has been talk, and the current Ukrainian president wants the Ukraine to join NATO. Well, Putin is saying, no way. We're not going to let this happen. We're not going to let Ukraine join NATO. This is going to be too dangerous for us. Folks, countries go to war because of fear and because they think it's in their national interest. And that's why Putin has done what he's doing. He is a brutal ruler, basically a KGB thug, but he's looking at this in a certain way. Now, I think the question you're probably asking is what's going to happen? I don't think anybody knows. On paper, this looks like a slam dunk. The Russian army is 5 times bigger and stronger than the Ukrainian army. They got a lot more soldiers. They got complete control of the air with their fighter planes and bombers and helicopters. They got more artillery. They got a lot more armor, which is tanks. You know, they've got a stronger military. What's not known is this. The Ukrainians are now arming just regular people. Every male 18 to 60 has been told, show up. We're giving you an AK-47 and you're gonna help fight these people. Well, this is a country of 44 million people. So you've got several million men who potentially can be armed. Probably don't have that many weapons, but nevertheless. So folks, in the end, I don't know how this whole thing's gonna play out. I don't think anybody does. It could end very quickly. The Russian army takes Kiev, which is the capital of the Ukraine. The government is overthrown of Ukraine. A new government comes in and says, yeah, we'll kind of do what you want us to do. We will follow the lead of the Russian government from here on. It could go that way. On the other hand, it could go another way. The Russians get in there. There's ferocious Ukrainian resistance. The Russians bog down. They begin to take a lot of casualties. At home, there's economic problems among the Russian people, and Putin decides he better end this thing and get out. It could go that way. As far as we're concerned, I think there's 2 major things we need to be concerned about. Anybody in here ever heard of something called cyber war? Okay? Folks, everything, you know this, everything runs on computers today. Everything is tied into computers. That runs on computers, okay? Electricity, gas to heat homes, banking systems, Walmart being knowing how many goods to take to each store. Everything is tied together with computers. Cyber attack means that you got some really good computer guys or girls, and they hack into the other country's computer systems. You shut down the banks. You can't get any money out. The bank doesn't even know how much money you got because it's all on computer. There's no electricity. They can't get the lights to come back on because this computer in Russia has told this computer in the United States to stay shut down. You got no heat because they have shut that down. So the concern is a cyber attack from Russia on the United States. We would retaliate because we've got the ability to do that too. This whole thing could escalate out of hand. And of course, I've heard some people say, why doesn't the United States send troops in to help the Ukrainians? This is a cruel thing that Putin's doing. He's a bad guy. We ought to do something. Why don't we jump in there? Anybody figure out why? Folks, keep in mind, Russia has thousands of nuclear weapons. We have thousands of nuclear weapons. You certainly do not want this thing to escalate into some type of nuclear exchange. Estimates are, God forbid, over a nuclear war, first 3 hours, 100 million dead Americans, 100 million dead Russians. With a lot more on the way based on radiation and everything else. You can't go down that road. So in the end, what are we going to do about it? Sanctions, you're going to hear a lot about that. That means, you know, countries trade with each other, you buy, you sell, you know, stuff goes in ships back and forth, all that. You're going to sanction Russia, cut off some of their business, try to hurt their economy, try to put pressure on them that way. And, but once again, as far as how any of this is gonna play out, I don't think anybody knows yet. It's too soon to say. I hope one thing has come clear to you from this brief discussion. The world's a complicated place, okay? It's complicated. And one of the reasons we try to give you young folks an education is so when you get out there as an adult and you hear something in the news, it sort of makes sense to you. Because see folks, if you don't have an education, none of it makes any sense to you. It's just like, what's that all about? I don't know what's going on here. So I hope that this little talk has provided some understanding of this complicated situation. What questions do y'all have, please?